let's make a little start then. Okay, now this album you can make literally in an hour or so if you've got everything cut and prepped ready. But I've blocked us out for about 2 hours tonight. I'm not expecting us to use that either. So, you know, we'll just poodle along at our leisure. If you've got any questions, please do just sort of put a little comment. If you want me to go over anything, that's absolutely fine. We've got Joanne as well. Hi, Joanne. Welcome for this evening. Actually, I think... it's very stormy. I'm going to put the little fan on, so hopefully that's not going to blow everything all over the place. Let me just pop my little fan on. That's it. Oh, there we go. And Fiona as well. Welcome, Fiona. So let's make a start. Right, so my instructions. Now, just to let you know, those of you that have already downloaded these, you'll know that they are free. After Sunday, they won't be. So if you haven't downloaded your instructions, your cutting and scoring instructions, then please do that before Sunday, and then you'll get them for nothing. Okay, now on here I try and make sure that I put everything in with regards to the resources, so you can see roughly what you're going to need, like with the amount of construction board, black card, etc. White paper. I use just ordinary photocopying paper. Then I've also got things like a little key ring. Now, you don't have to put a keychain on it if you don't want to. I just bought these off of eBay. I think is where I got them from originally. Okay, or Amazon. Or things I've put on here is obviously some embellishments. Now, I have made these out of scraps. Okay, but I have put on here pattern paper 6x6 pad. So if you have got a pad you want to use that, then that will give you plenty of options for decorating. But I have used scraps for everything on my albums. And the one thing I did want to point out on here as well is the clear parcel tape, 2-inch wide. Because if you was going to give this as a gift, maybe it was going to attach to a rucksack or a handbag or something like that, you can wrap it in the 2-inch clear parcel tape, just to sort of protect it. Okay, so that's why I've put that on there, just to give you another option. Okay, and then just down here I've got the instructions. So where are we? Construction board. Now I've already pre-cut mine out. Okay, so I've got my 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch times 2, and I've got my little spine. Okay, so I'm just going to pop them over there, and I've written on here as well on the black card 7-inch by 3.25 inch by 1 inch. Now this is to actually wrap round our construction board. Okay, so that will do for your outer album. I'm just explaining this now. So that will be your cover. However, I have also put on here that you can use construction tape, or what we call like tiger tape. Now, I get mine from a lovely company called Cool Cats Craft. I'll link them in. I think it's called catscraft.com. But yes, they call this like tiger tape. And you can, rather than do the bit of black cardstock to cover your album, you can, like I've just done here, just wrapped it in our construction tape or tiger tape. Okay, it does exactly the same thing. So I've just put both of those on there because I just wanted to let you have some options as to what you want to do. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that to one side. Now, also on my instructions, unfortunately my computer doesn't do 3/8 how we would normally write it. So where it's got here 2 and then 3/8 of an inch, so that's 2 inches plus the 3/8, just to let you know. And when I normally put on like scoring 1/2 inch on 3 sides, I'll show you that when we come to do the pocket. And the other thing is I normally write on here, score 1/2 inch on the 2.5 inch side. So that is the length of the card that I put into the scoreboard. But you'll see when we come to do all of that what I mean. But I just wanted to explain myself a little bit on my instructions. Okay, now if everybody is all set, ready to go, like I said, oh, let's just pop that up there. Is that going to stay there? Probably not, because I've got my little fan on. Hold on, let me just glue that, stick that down. There we go. So I've got the measurements there. Okay, so who else have we got quickly joined us? We've got another Joanne. Welcome, Joanne. Savannah, lovely of you to join us again, and Gail as well. So thank you, ladies. Like I said, do please pop into the comments where you're from. That would be great. So our first thing first, then, we're going to make our cover. All right. Now, I've got two different thicknesses of red liner tape. I've got 9-inch here. This is a little 6-inch one. Sometimes I use a 12-inch as well. We sell this on the shop. You get like 50 meters in a row, so it keeps you going forever and ever and ever, unless you're like me and you're making loads of projects, in which case you get through it quite quickly. But what I'm going to do is that on our little 2.5-inch squares and our spine, I'm just going to put some of the red liner tape. So I'm just going to put a little strip down here. Now, I always find, I don't know about any of you that might make albums, I do like to use the red liner tape for what I call the construction parts of the album. It just keeps, you know, it just gives it some extra strength. Now, I'm not completely smothering this with the red liner tape. I'm just putting a few bits on there like so. And I'm just going to do the same on the other one. Here we are. So just give me a thumbs up how many of you are actually doing this as we're going along. And please do tell me as well if I'm going too fast. I do have a habit of chit-chatting away, and I'm cracking on with things. But please do give me the nod. Okay. Who else have we got? We've got another Sarah. That's 3 Sarahs we've got tonight joining us. Welcome. And Debbie as well. Lovely. So we're just going to snip those, and then I'm just going to put some of the red liner tape on here. I'm just going to line that down. It's a little bit fiddly. Big. So I'm like, right, okay, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to come from a big album down to a small album. And that's where the inspiration came from. Plus also it's using up scraps as well. Hi, Samantha, lovely of you to join us as well. I'll give a shout out to people as you pop on. So I'm just cards per inch, okay? And I'm just going to line these on here for the minute just to see. So let's just pop that one in the middle. So I'm looking about 1/8 of an inch gap between the front and back album and the spine. Okay. Now normally what I say is that if you're unsure about just sticking things straight down, actually I'm just going to move those out of the way a little bit, give yourself a little bit of space. Here we are. Let's bring this down a bit. Then you can pop a little ruler and you've got a rough guide there, and it just keeps everything nice and straight as well when you're sort of gluing and sticking these down. Okay, because I'll be honest, red liner tape is not very forgiving. Okay, so a little tip that I use is as I do use a bit of bookbinding glue. Okay, so I'm just going to peel these off. Let's just take these off, and we're going to do one at a time. And because these are nice and square, it doesn't matter which way I stick it on here. And I'm just going to add a little bit of glue. Okay, let's put the lid back on there. And I'm just going to pull this down a little bit. So I've got, making sure I've got about the same sort of distance on there, and then we're just going to go for it. So I'll be honest, sometimes I just do this purely by eye, but that's me, but I'm showing you ways, if you find these things a little bit fiddly, how you can do that. Okay, then we're going to come for the middle one, for the spine. Let's just pop this on. There we go, like so. Just put a little bit of glue. Now the reason why I put a bit of glue on as well is it gives you that little bit of wiggle room on your red liner tape, like I said, because it can be very unforgiving. Right, I'm just going to straighten that up, and I'm going for about 1/8 of an inch gap, so I'm using the ruler as a rough guide. There we are. Now these are all offcuts that I've used, that I've made other albums, so like I said, it's a really good little project for using up your scraps. Okay, here we go, and we're just going to take the other one off. Whoops, it's sticking to my fingers. Now I found that with the little Dinkywinkydoodah albums, you can decorate these up however you wish, and tonight I've decided I'm going to decorate this one using little doggy paper. I've quite a few friends that have got little doggies, so I thought it'd be quite nice to make one of these up. Oh, come on, stick down. There we go. There we are. Right, okay, so they're all stuck down. So yeah, so like here, this one is a travel one, and then this one you could probably use as like a birthday one, or even actually you could make these for like if you've got family members that are going off to university and that, and putting like family photos in, I think would be a really nice little idea as well. But you can obviously decorate and use it however you like. Hi Lynette, welcome. So I'm just going to take my little burnish tool and I'm just going to run it round the edge here. It's just helping to stretch those lovely paper fibres. And we're just going to run that round like so, and I like to just give it a little bit of a fold before I put my red liner tape on it. Now I do say in my instructions that I do use a minimum paper weight of about 240 GSM, okay, because you want that bit of strength in there, and you know, the thickness and that for when you're making like your album covers and stuff. Right, okay, so I'm just taking my 9mm red liner tape, and I'm just going to, is that going to be, have I done that right? Yeah, just about right. We're just going to tuck that in along that edge and snip that off, and I'm going to do this all the way round. Okay, so those of you that are doing this along with me, how are we getting on? Hopefully everybody's all okay. Now, with Facebook, they like to take down our live videos after, I think it's after 30 days. So if you haven't had a chance to save, because I do believe you can save these videos onto your own Facebook channel, but if you find it or you lose it, then I will be uploading this onto YouTube. Okay, so you can find it on there. All right, and that's where I sort of upload all our other past ones as well. So if you've been watching any of the other albums and things I've been making, I'll be honest, it has taken me a little while, but I am gradually uploading all of the past videos. So right, okay, so we're just gonna give this a little burnish just to make sure that red liner tape is stuck down good and proper. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to now mitre the corners. Now sometimes, especially when you're folding over, depending on how far you cut away from the edge of your construction board, sometimes you can see a little bit of the construction board. So a little tip that I have is I use a Sharpie, and I just colour in that corner, okay, just in case I don't cut it quite right. It just saves all that hassle. So I just go in and just colour those, and then I just come along that little edge like so, just a little tip, and let's just tuck that in like that. There we are, and I'm just going to tuck that in there. Okay, right, I think, oh, one more side to go. There we go. It's just in case when I cut it, if I don't cut the angle quite right, then at least I've saved myself that issue. Right, okay. Now, those of you who've seen me do some of my videos before, when I'm cutting across here, I don't cut right up against the construction board, okay? I come out to what I consider is the thickness of the construction board, because I need that little bit to sort of come up over the edge, if that makes sense for everybody. And I'm just going to cut, so you can see here I've got a little bit sticking out from the edge of there, and then I will do that on all four corners like so. 3, and our last one, 4. Right, okay, let's just pop those into the bin out the way. Okay, right, so now we've done that. Now I've got that red liner tape on there. I'm just going to give that another little fold, just to make sure that that is all good. And then we're going to take off, so I'm just going to use my little pokey tool. I'm going to take off. Now I personally always do the long ends first. It's just me. There we go. I'll take that off. I'm just going to fold that up, and I fold into the middle like so, and then I come out on the outsides, and as I'm folding it over, I'm sort of gently pulling it a little bit so I get a nice clean edge to that. Okay, now when I've done that side, I'm going to turn around and do the other side. There we go. I'm just going to peel that bit off, and again I'm just going to start that in the middle, and then I'm going to come to the outside. Now, being a tiny dinky little album, doesn't, there we are. It seems weird working on smaller little things. I'm normally working on 8-inch albums and so forth. Right, there we go. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to gently stretch those fibres into where the folds are going to be for the, so that all just folds up nicely, and then that one just folds up nicely as well. Okay, so that's all good. And now we're just going to come and do these last ends here. Now sometimes, if I bring this up close to the camera, sometimes depending on how you've cut your angle, you might find that when that folds over, it's gonna, you're gonna have a tiny like little tag on it. So what I do is I just tuck it in that corner in with my nail either side. I don't know if you can see that, where I've just tucked that, and come up closer to the camera, where I've just tucked that in just on there. It'll just give us a nicer finish. Okay, and then I can fold that over, and this is a moment of truth when I find out that I've actually cut them correctly, and I didn't need to do my little Sharpie pen trick after all. But there we go. Okay, and by tucking those bits in, just gives us a nicer edge to it. And then I'm going to do exactly the same here. So if I come up close to the camera, just going to tuck that one in, and we're going to tuck that one in like so. and then I'm going to fold that over. Now I can see already that, look, where I put that black ink there, oh, there might have just been a slither of construction board showing on that one. So good job I did do my little Sharpie pen bit after all on there. There we are, right, and just take off that last bit of red tape and stick that down. Okay, and here we are. That's it. I'm just going to fold that over like so. And that is our album cover done. Now, normally when I do any of my albums, I don't normally decorate them until the last minute, okay? Because obviously I'm working on it and you might get a little bit scuffed up and dirty on the side. But if you were going to give this to somebody that you think will have it hanging outside, you know, and where it might get wet, for example, like on a rucksack or something like that, then what I suggest is that you decorate the outside now and then cover it with the clear parcel tape, okay? And I would just sort of put strips going all the way along, and then I can fold that over because then we're going to be putting the inside in, okay? Hi Steph, welcome. So you've just come to join us. Hope you're okay. So yeah, so if you was going to do that and you was going to put the plastic over the top as a, or you can, if you haven't got clear parcel tape, the good old sticky back plastic, the clear stuff, you know, you could sort of cover it with that and then sort of fold over the edges and that, but obviously you would need to decorate it on the outside first. Okay, just wanted to give you a heads up on that one before we move on. So now we've got our little album cover. What I need is to have something that's just going to come across here. If you was using the construction tape, then obviously you would have wrapped the construction tape round that, so it would have covered up that centerpiece for when you put your spine cover on, but I haven't done that. So on my here I've just pre-cut of red liner tape. What you can't see is that they're all static, all sticking to my arm here. Right, let's put those out the way. There we go. So I've just cut this bit inside spine. That's what I've labelled it as on the instructions: 2 3/8 of an inch by 2 3/4. Okay, and that is just going to sit right across that spine base. So again, because it's part of the construction, I'm just going to put a couple of bits of red liner tape down the middle. Okay, so let's just turn that to the side. Okay, let's just tuck that in, and we're just going to literally just put a couple of strips down the middle. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a strip on each end. Now this is the 2 3/4 inch side that I'm sort of coming down these strips for, so it will sort of sit like that. Okay, just just so that you know which way I'm sticking this stuff on. Where are we? Lovely red liner tape. Okay, and then I'm just going to put a little bit on the end like so. So those of you that have just recently joined, if you didn't hear me earlier, I was just saying that you can go to the website and download the pattern or the cutting and scoring guide for free, and then from Sunday onwards there'll be a small charge for that, so do pop over there and get your free instructions. Okay, right, so here we are. So 2 3/4 inches along the top, that's what I'm going to glue and stick down onto there, and it will cover the spine, but it's also going to bridge across this gap here as well, and that will help strengthen that. So let's just, I'm just going to take off the top 2 bits. Okay, And we're just going to put a little bit of wiggly glue just down that bit for the moment. Hi Julie, welcome. Just catching everybody as you're popping on. Right, and I'm just going to stick that down and just centre that into that middle bit. Right, I'll just hold that for a minute. Now, as you can see, I didn't peel off the red liner tape on the very ends, because what I want to do is where that fold is, I'm just going to run my bone folder along there, okay, just to stretch those fibres and just give that a bend, because when I glue that down flat, I want to make sure that we don't get like what I call butterfly wings, where it sort of sits like that. It needs to sit flat, okay. So I'm just giving that a little stretch, those fibres on the inside there, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. But like I said, if you've used construction tape, then you would have just wrapped that round and you won't need to worry about doing this bit. I like to give you options. Okay, I'm just going to fold that so that folds okay. All right, lie that flat. All right, and now I'm just going to peel off our red liner tape, and I'm just going to add a little bit of bookbinding glue just along that edge, and I'm just now going to put some down on that side as well, holding that flat, and I'm just going to press that down. I'm just going to give that another little rub down. There we are. So that keeps that flat, and then I'm just going to repeat exactly the same on the other side. Okay. Right, and we're just going to add our little bit of glue, like so, and we're just going to glue that down, and again I'm just going to stretch those fibres and rub that down. There we are, and that is our album cover done. Let's just give that a little fold, make sure that's still sticking okay. And there we are, and that's our little album cover done already. Now, before we move on to the other bits, basically, here we are. Got two ways of doing this next bit, okay? So when we do look at the spine, I'm just going to come back to our original. Here you can see I've punched a little hole, and I've put a little ring eyelet in there to hold the keychain. Now, if you don't want to do the keychain, then you don't need to consider this bit next, okay? Just ignore what I'm going to be saying for the next couple of minutes, all right? But if you do want the keychain, then please do listen to this. Now, when I first made this one, I decorated it after I put the eyelet in. Whereas on this one, as you can see, I have done it when I decorated it on the outside, okay? And also that meant that I'd also decorated it on the inside, okay? Now, when I was doing these, when I first made it, I didn't think actually when I should put the eyelet in, I'll be honest. But this is probably the best stage to do that, is to put your papers on either side, and then we're going to punch the hole ready, because obviously while this is still flat and it hasn't got our little accordion bit and it hasn't got our little pocket here, it's going to be easier to do that. Okay, now I've already pre-cut my papers, so that's my paper I'm going to use for the outside, and this is the paper I'm going to use for the inside. All right, all the rest of the decoration in terms of the papers and that can be done at the end of when the album is made. Okay, so that's going on the inside and that one is going to go on the outside. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these down, and then I'm going to make the hole. Okay, Now I have put on the pattern, on the instructions rather, all the different sizes for the patterned paper. Okay, so you can have a little look if you haven't done those already. I'm just going to pop that on there. I'm just going to center that. Let's have a little look. Okay, that's about the middle on there, like so. And then I'm going to put this one on the outside. Alright, here we go. On the spine. Right, okay, I'm just going to center that. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave that to dry for a couple of minutes. I'm just going to pop that out the way, and while that's drying we're going to get on with making the pocket and the flap for the for this side of the album. Okay, how's everybody doing? Is everybody all okay? Give me a thumbs up if everybody's all okay. I know some of you are working along with me. Now, okay, so what have we got here? This is a little photo mat. So the instructions tell you the 3 different parts that you're going to need for that side. I've got the pocket, I've got the flap, and I've got my little photo mat. So on my instructions here for the black card, pocket is 1 3/4 inches by 3 3/8, so that's that bit. The flap is 2 3/8 by 2 1/2 inches, and then the little photo mat that I've done is 2 1/8 by 2 1/8. Okay, so I'm going to pop the little photo mat over there because we don't need that straight away for the moment. Who else have we got come up? Oh, don't worry, Samantha, it's not a problem, bless you. That's absolutely fine. I love the fact that she says she's doing this on the hop. Do you know what? Sometimes that's the best way to do it. Hi, Amanda. We've got Amanda joining us as well. Obviously, you can go back and rewatch these, so please don't worry about any of that. Okay. Just trying to see if my comments are coming up. Okay, that's all good. Right. So the little flap and the little pocket. So let's start off with these first. I've got my little scoreboard. Now on the flap, okay, it says here score 1/2 inch on the 2 1/2 inch side. So this is what I want to explain. So because this is 2 3/8 by 2 1/2, when I say that it's on the 2 1/2 inch side, it means that it's got to be 2 1/2 inches at the top. If I turn that round, that's obviously the 2 inches and 3/8. That's the wrong way. I need to turn this round and have it as 2 1/2 inches on the top. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to score my 1/2 inch like so. All right, so that was 2 1/2 inches, and I've scored 1/2 inch along there, so pop that on there. Now the pocket, when I do the pockets, I say score 1/2 inch on 3 sides. So the pocket is going across that way, so I need to come down 1 2 3. Okay, so we'll start off with 1/2 inch, then I'll turn it round and do the 1/2 inch coming along the bottom, then I'll turn it round again and do the 1/2 inch along the top. So on 3 sides, that's what I mean, 1 2 3. Okay, so that's our scoring done. Evening, Amanda. I hope you're okay. Right, now we're going to put the red liner tape on here. So let's pop the instructions out of the way for the minute. And again, because this is a construction thing, I'm using my lovely red liner tape. Now, we've got a little dent there where I've put the, so you can call it a valley. On the other side is a bump or a mountain, whichever way you like to call it. I call it the bump side. But what I do is I always put my red liner tape on the side which has got the little valley or the little dip on it, because then I'm going to fold that over. And a good friend of mine always said you should always fold on the bump, so because it just helps with the stretching of the paper fibers and stuff. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm just going to run a little bit of red liner tape along there. So there's my little bump and there's my little bit of red liner tape. And then for the pocket, I'm going to put red liner tape 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to miter these corners. So don't worry if your red liner tape doesn't come right up to either end on those, because we are going to snip those off at an angle. Okay, so let's just pop that down. We're going to do 1. Oops. 1. And we're going to come along here. 2. And then we're going to do the third one. Let's just come along at the top here. Right. Okay, I'm getting a little burnish blindfolded. All right, we're just going to give that a little rub down, make sure that is sticking on properly. Now, what I will say with the pockets is that I do try and get the red liner tape up as close to the top as I can, because this is going to be the top of your pocket. Okay, just so that you know. All right, and then I'm just going to fold that onto the bump, and I'm going to create the little flap. So this will sit on here like so. Okay, and then the pocket will go at the bottom. Now, where I've scored, you've got 2 cross pieces of the score lines. Okay, and basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in at a roughly a 45-degree angle. I mean, I'm not being, you know, I'm not being exact on this, but giving you a rough idea. Okay, but I'm going to cut across, so it cuts across where those 2 score lines fold, and then I'm just going to give the pair of scissors a little angle. Okay, so you can see, I don't know if you can see, it's very where the little cross bit is, and I've just come across there, because when I fold that back, you'll see that these bits will lie flat. Okay, did I show you that okay? Could you see that? Let me come over the camera a little bit. Yep, so that's the little cross line bit, and then I've just come in and across down like so, and I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side. So I'm going to cut to where the cross is, and then I'm going to come over. Right, let's remember that you keep moving up the table a bit. Right, okay, so you should end up with your pocket looking something like that. Okay, and then when I fold these back onto that bump, okay, like so, you'll see that where I cut that slightly wonky, that will lay nice and flat on our when we put the pocket on. Okay, and I'm just going to give these a little burnish. Okay, that's it. Just make sure that they're nice and sharp. Now, obviously, I've written on here what the sizes are, but I've written it in pencil. So what I'm going to do is just get the rubber out. I'm just going to take those pencil marks off. That's it. There we go. Don't worry about that bit in the middle. Right, okay, I'll just rub that off. There we are. All right, so that's going to be our pocket and our flap. Now on both my albums I have corner rounded the flap bit, but it's up to you. I just think it gives a nice finish, and I'm using, this is a We Are Memory Keepers one, and I'm using the smallest because this is a tiny album, so I'm just using the smallest one of these. So I'm just going to nice corner round on that one, and then I'm going to come in and do that on the other one, so it just takes off that little edge. Okay, so that's ready for assembly to go on when we do that. Right, okay, so let's just come back to our album cover where we're going to make the hole. Now it depends on what tools you have really, as to what you're going to use. Now some people might have an eyelet tool setting kit, which looks something like, let me just see if I can find these, just to show you. So you have like this, the tool where you have a little mat, a little tool goes on there, you give it a good whack with the hammer, makes the hole, bob's your uncle, then you can put your little eyelet in, and then you can use this end for that. So that's one way of doing it. The easiest way, I suppose, is if you've got, now I call it a crocodile, I know it's not a crocodile, it's a crocodile, but I call it a crocodile, it's just one of my things. But on here it's got, and it hasn't got paper stuck in it, I've got two size holes here, and depending on the size of the eyelet will determine which hole size I'm going to use. And let me just get my little eyelets. Now my papers for the outside are going to be, I've got this sort of colouring in it, but it's got some nice sort of like blues and reds and stuff. So I'm probably, let's have a little look, see what one I'm going to use. I think I quite like the, well, although it's going on to green paper, so I think that looks, whoops, nearly knocked the camera then, there we go. I might use that one actually, that looks quite a nice colour. So my little stash. Okay, so that's what I'm going to use. I just need to get my little mat out as well, because when I come to set it, I'm going to need that. So what I'm going to do is, now let me just pull the little keychain. Now depending on your keychain that you've bought, now it only came with one like little jump ring on there. Okay, so I've got to bear in mind that that jump ring has got to come over there, and it's got to come through the little eyelet. This is probably the trickiest bit out of the whole album, okay, is trying to work out where you're going to put that. Now unless you've got jewelry bits and you've got a spare jump ring, you might be able to put another one, or you might be able to put on a bigger one. Okay, I've unfortunately only got these with these tiny little ones, so I am going to have to come just off that paper a little bit. Okay, so I just wanted to explain that before I go ahead and do that. So I'm looking at the size of that. Let's see how we go for size. Is that gonna, see, that's gonna fit quite nicely, that one, or would I prefer the small one? No, definitely the bigger one of the two. Okay, right, so I'm just gonna give that a little fold so I can see roughly where the center is, and I'm only coming up probably, I'm probably going to do that half and half. So I'll have half my circle coming across the paper, the other half coming in on the black, so you can sort of see what I'm doing, and I'm trying to center that like so. And before I finalize that, I'm just looking at the amount of paper either side as well, give me a rough guide. If you're unsure about this, then obviously you can measure it up and put some little pencil marks on it and that's gonna cut in, just come up. Right, okay, I'm going for it. Okay. Whew, there we are, and that's still giving me a bit of sturdiness there on that edge. Thank goodness for that. And now I can pop in my little eyelet. That fits nicely. And then I've got my little eyelet pad here, and I'm just going to turn that over. Okay, I'm going to get my little hammer, and I've got my eyelet setting tool, and I'm just going to give that a bit of a whack, which will spread that open. Sorry guys, waking up everybody. Okay, and that is now fixed in there. Okay, so you can see why I say that if you're going to put the eyelet in, to do it at this stage, because when you've got your accordion and your other bits, to try and lay it flat to do that makes it a little bit awkward. Okay, all right, but you can, you know, if you haven't got an eyelet and you're not putting that in, then you don't need to worry about that if you're not going to put the keychain on. Okay, now while I've got this here, I might as well put my eyelet, my little keychain in. Now this is a fiddly bit. I did open it up earlier because these jump rings are quite strong. Right, so I've got that resting like so. I've got 2 pairs of flat-ended pliers here. Alright, so I'm going to grab one end, and I'm going to grab the other end. Now when I open this up, I just literally twisted it, so I'm getting a good grip on that, and I should be able to pull them if I twist those back, right back. Okay, let's see how we're doing. Nearly there. Right, I can now line those up. That's it, give that a good squeeze. Oh, phew. And there we are, and we've got our little keychain on there already. Right, I promise you that is the hardest bit. Okay, just getting the little keychain on. And now that's done, we can start putting our inside bits in. Okay, how's everybody doing? Are we all good? Just like to check in on you guys, make sure everybody's all okay. Right, so we've prepped everything ready for our pocket this side, which we'll put on a minute, but we're going to focus on the accordion bit. Okay, now this is the inside cover. This is what I call inside spine cover. Sorry, inside front cover. See here, inside front cover. Because what I want is I just want to put that bit of card just to stick right across there. Okay, because this bit will be covered up with the pocket and the flap, and we're going to put some coloured paper in there, but I just want to make sure that I get a nice full coverage over there, so it's just an extra little bit of paper. It's doing that. Oh, that's good, Samantha, it's still keeping up. So I'm just going to stick this bit on, because our accordion book is a little bit smaller, and I just want to make sure that I've got good coverage covering these bits of the album cover on the outside. So I'm just going to stick that down like so. Just give that a moment to dry. There we are. That's it. So that's given us a nice solid base. Okay. Oh, excuse me. And right, so we're now on to our little accordion bit. Now I'm just reverting back to my instructions again, because I've given you a choice of what you can do here. Okay, I've put here accordion pages. You can either make individual pages and then you glue them together to make the accordion part, or you can do them in the strips and then you're going to score that. So I've gone with the strips for tonight. So you've got 2 strips, 7 1/4 inch by 2 1/4 inch. You've got 2 of those, and then you've got a little extra bit which is 2 1/4 by 4 1/2. Okay, and this is what I'm going to make the accordion out of. That's this bit. Let's just open those up. So this is going to be this bit. Now what I will say is that if you make the pages individually, it can bulk this out a little bit. Okay, but if you're using scraps and that's all you've got, then that's absolutely fine. Okay, but if you've got longer bits of scraps of paper, then obviously you can do what I've done and cut out, and we're just going to score those. So, oh, hi Jackie. Oh, thank you for that. Great idea. Lovely. So I like to give you what's the best way forward. So I'm just going to, all right, these are my little seat belt bits. I don't want to lose those. Let's just clip them together for a minute. I know I keep on about these little black clips, but they're a great little buy from Amazon. I use them for all sorts of things. Okay. Right, so let's get these. So the measurements, and we'll start with the 2 long pieces. So on here it says, where are you? Accordion score. Right, we're scoring because we're doing the strips. We are scoring on the 7 1/4 inch, which is the long bit at the top. Okay, and we are scoring at, where are we? 7 1/4 by 2. Score 2 1/4 inch, so 2 1/4. Then we're doing 4 1/2. Okay, and then we're doing 6 3/4. Oh, nearly did 6 1/2 then. Right, 6 3/4. And we're going to repeat the same on here. So again, that is 2 1/4, 4 1/2, 6 3/4. Okay, so there are our 2 long pieces, and then our next bit, so this bit here is a 4 1/2 inch, so we're going to put that, the 4 1/2 inch there, and we are scoring on that 2 1/4, like so. So it's almost like a little book, that one. Okay, all right. Right, okay, so Samantha, great question. I'm using scrap. Do we do this a different way? Okay, so if you were doing the pages, all right, so let me just get a little bit of scrap so I can show you. Right, obviously this isn't the right size, but if this was your, let me just cut this up so I can show you what I mean. Okay, so if your paper was, it says here score, right, it's 2 1/2 inches by 3 inches. So let's just say that's the longest bit. The longest piece, your 3 inches, you would put at the top, and then you are just scoring 1/2 inch down that side. Okay, I hope that helps. All right, and what we'll do is I'll show you with these odd bits. So let me just score these just to show everybody. Okay, so when you've made your 7 pages, I will show you what we're going to do with that. All right, okay, and we'll come back to that in a minute. I've done it on bigger paper so you can see what I mean. Okay, right. Those that are doing it with the strips, okay, so on these little 1/2 inch tabs, we're going to put some red liner tape. Okay, so I'm just going to put some red liner tape, just going across there, like so, and I'm going to do exactly the same. You're welcome. Perfect, makes sense, yeah, okay, that's cool. It really depends on the size of the scraps that you've got. To be honest, I don't know about you, but I often find that I do have quite a few, quite odd shaped scraps. So trying to find things to use them up with. especially long lengths, you know, when you're cutting squares and then you're left with the strip. What do you do with the strip? There we go. Anyway, right, okay, so what I'm going to do with this is, let me just see how I did this before. Yeah, okay, I just had to have a memory think then for a moment. Right, okay, so your two strips, your two 7-inch, 7¼ inch strips, what I'm going to do is I'm going to join this tab bit here onto there. So I'm making one long strip. Okay, so you've got your red liner tape, you're going to stick it to the back of that one. I've still got this bit of red liner tape here on the end. Okay, all right, and I'm going to stick one on top of the other. Okay, so I'm just going to peel that off. I like your comment, Samantha. Yeah, I know. Honestly, I've got boxes of scraps. So just, yeah, I'm just going to put a little bit of red glue on there. Right, and I'm just going to line that up with that score line. I've just put the glue on there so I can make sure that I get a good solid fix on there. Right, okay, and a bit of wiggle room. So now that strip has oh, Deborah, yes, I can see your comment. You make too many albums. Yeah, I think we're all in that same sort of field there. Bless your heart. Right, okay, so this long bit now has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares that have been glued together, and then we've got the red liner tape here stuck on the end. Okay, now this one I'm going to now stick the two little bits onto that one. Okay, so I'm making one long strip. Okay, so let's take off the red liner tape and add a little bit of glue. Now, depending on what size papers you use, you might find that you might be able to make this strip like this out of like 12 by 12 papers if you've got really long strips of paper, you know, that you can do that as well. And I'm just going to line that up and stick that down. Okay, all right. And you're probably thinking, how on earth am I going to attach that to the album? Don't panic, I have a plan. Right, just coming back to Samantha, for you to do your pages, if you're doing individual pages, you're going to put red liner tape on one side, okay, and then you're going to put red liner tape on the other, and you're going to join them together like that. Okay, and you're just going to carry on making those pages like they are. Okay, until you get a really nice long strip. Now, the only thing that's going to be different for yours is that my long strip doesn't have a little 1/2 inch bit at the end, okay, but yours will. All right, you'll find that you'll have a little 1/2 inch, and that bit is what you will attach to your album cover. Okay, so your little 1/2 inch will join onto that cover like so. Okay, all right, so just to give you a heads up on that. All right, that's what you do with that. Now for this one, now that I've got my lovely long strip, I'm going to fold. Now with these you do have to, because you're folding backwards and forwards. Okay, so we're just getting that like concertina type thing effect going. Okay, like so it sort of becomes a bit like a little spring. And then I'm just going to get my bone folder and I'm just going to sharpen those folds. So I'll come down one side, okay, and then I'm going to turn it around, and then I'm going to do the other side like so. Okay, right. Goodness me. Nearly falling off my chair then. Okay, the pages are bigger than the strip. Is that right? The pages are bigger than the strip. Is that right? The pages are bigger than the strip. Yeah, well, they will do, because you'll be joining them together, but you will be joining them. So when that comes on like so, that will have one bit which will be stuck to that. It will be slightly longer because you're going to have that extra bit of the 1/2 inch. 2.5 inches. Let me just check. 2.5 inches by, right, okay, bear with me. 2.5 inches. They are going to sit right on. Right, okay, I'll be honest, I think, even though I said, no, you're absolutely, oh, you mean the height. Right, okay, I'm just looking at that. Right, actually, I think you're absolutely right. I think that should read 2.25 inches. That is my mistake, and I can only apologise for that. So I will, and yet I think because when I made up this originally, let me just change that, 2.25. Although the 2.5 will fit in, but it will be a really snug fit. Okay, so it's up to you. The 2.5 inch, if I get my ruler, is going to take it right up to that edge. Okay, if you want to bring it in so it comes in a little bit, then obviously 2.25. Okay, all right. So I've changed that on my pattern. I will go back onto the website and I'll get that changed. Okay. Apologies for that. Right. Okay. So now we're going to, let's just move all these bits out of the way. There we go. So that was the demo on that. Right. Our lovely concertina bit. I'm just going to put this out the way for the moment. Okay, now we've got the little seat belts. Okay, so the seat belts are 3.25 inches, oh sorry, 3/4 of an inch by 2.5 inches. They're just two little strips, and we're going to have to score these. Oh, you've trimmed yours. Well done, Susie. Thank you for that. I mean, I'll be honest, I mean, I do test my patterns, but you know, I can only apologise, but it would still fit the album. It would just be a very tight, snug fit on that. Right, the seat belt. So it says here, score 1/2 inch and 1/8 of an inch on the 2.5 inch side. So here we go. So we're going 1/2 inch and then 1 inch and 1/8. Okay. So basically what it's doing is it's given me that little sort of gusset bit, or the bit that's going to wrap around the accordion bit. Okay, and we're going to do the same on the other side. So that is 1/2 inch by 1 inch and 1/8. Okay, I'm just going to fold that. At least it wasn't too small. Well, that is very true, Deborah. It's very true. Okay, all right, let's pop that down there. Right, now these are the seat belts. So imagine there's your accordion page. These bits go of that, and then they're going to come over. Now on mine, what I did was I did corner round these. So we're just going to give these again. I'm doing it on the smaller one. I'm corner rounding it on the long piece. Okay, so it just like so. It just gives it a nicer finish, I think. Okay, like so. Okay, right, and there we have it. So we've got our two little bits that are going to come round on there. Now Okay, so I'm going to have to tell you two different things for this. Those of you that have made the long strips, okay, you don't have a little 1/2 inch bit, okay. So what we're going to do is that one of these ends is going to be stuck down, the whole thing is going to be stuck down onto that page, okay. But before we do that, we need to attach the seat belts to the back of that, so that when that sticks down, okay, like so, then that's going to sit with those little seat belts sort of sitting on the top like that, if you can see what I mean by that. Yeah, so the easiest way of fixing these is to fix these onto the back of that square before you stick that down. All right, and then you're going to do the same on the other side, so they'll go down like that. Those of you that have done the pages, you've got your 1/2 inch fold, which you would have folded over, and you've got your red liner tape on there ready to stick that down. On the outside one, you're going to need to, on that very bottom one, you're going to have to stick that on there as well, okay. And then well, you've got a choice. You can do it one of two ways. You can either stick it to that bit and then stick it down so you've still got that flat bit lifts up, or you can fold it down, or you can trim that off and have that so it sits flat like I've done on there, and then you can attach the other one on the other side, or you can leave that little flap there so you get an extra photo, as it were, and then you can stick that down, and then you can stick that the other side onto there, and then you will be putting a photo mat over the top of that anyway. Right, okay, that's just what I'm trying to explain, Deborah. Right, I'll re-go over that. If you've done the pages, right, let me glue this together and then it will make it easier. Okay, we'll just put a little bit of glue on there. Right, okay. So obviously this is... So, for you that are doing the individual pages, you've got the strip, okay, and then obviously you've got that folding down, so you've got your concertina going all the way up, and then that folds down like that. And then when you stick that edge onto there, when that opens up, obviously you've got that gap there, okay. But we need to attach your seat belts. So before you stick this strip down, you're going to attach one of the seat belts onto that strip. Then that gets glued down all together and put on that end. Okay. Is everybody okay with that? The other side, okay, so that will give you, so when that opens up, you've then got that extra page, and then the other seat belt, you would then just stick that little bit on there, because eventually you are going to put a photo mat that will go over the top of that. Yeah, is everybody okay with that? Or what you can do, if you wanted, you could, if you didn't want to use that, you could trim that bit off and stick the whole page down and do it like how I'm doing it on this one. The choice is yours. It's a little bit different doing it with the pages, okay. So yeah, so you can either stick that on there so you've got that one lined up ready, so that when you fold that down and you stick that down onto your album cover, for example, like so, then this bit will then, you will then just sort of glue in line so that you'll know that that will line up on your page. Does that make sense? It's our two lovely ladies that are making it with the individual pages. The other way is that you can cut off that strip, and so if you didn't have that strip, you could stick that onto that bottom page, the same onto that page, and then just glue the whole thing down. Whatever you find easier to do. Give me a thumbs up if that's all okay. Right, okay. After we joined the two strips together, the end still had half inch. Right, yeah, on the strip, what do we have to do with the 1/2 inch strip on the other end? Okay, so hopefully I've explained that. So your pages will look like that with that bit on there. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm hoping everybody's all okay. So for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work out which way I want that to go. So that's going to be my front. This is going to be the back. So I'm going to glue my strips onto my concertina bit here, but onto that back page. So let's just do that. If I do it on this one, then hopefully you'll understand what I'm trying to achieve. So this is my back page that's going to stick on there. Hold that down. Okay, and now I can fold that up. So the other side, that's going to come in on that side. And I need to line it up. I need to line that up. So that's coming across there. Like so. Just making sure that those line up with one another, so that when I fold that down and they fold over, they then fold over like so. Hopefully everybody's okay with that. All right, how's everybody doing? Okay. Right, all good here. Sam says okay, that's lovely. The strips, not the pages. Right, okay. So you should end up with that when you stick your concertina bit on your front cover here, that it should be like that. You've got your two flaps of your seat belt coming up, and then you will have your little accordion bit coming up and down like so. Okay, so I'm going to glue this in, but because it's part of the construction, I'm going to add a little bit of red liner tape onto here. Deborah, give me a thumbs up if you're okay. Right, I'm going to put that across. I'm going to put 3 strips across this, like so. There we are. Just going to burnish those, and then I'm just going to take these off and add a bit of glue. Right, okay. Right, how's everybody else doing? Susie, I hope you're all okay as well. Right, okay, so here's my little spun. It's like a little spring. Right, I'm just going to add the glue on. I'll put glue on top of the red liner tape because I need a little bit of wiggle room. And we're just going to flip that over. And then I'm going to center that in on that front cover, like so. I'm just going to hold that down for a second. Here we are. All good. Oh, you cut it off, Deborah. Okay, perfect. Perfect. Right. Okay, so now I've got this like little springy bit, and I've got these little seat belt bits to come over. Okay, And what we're going to do is we'll put the little magnets on, and then we can decorate that. So I'll just let that dry. So the magnets, okay, I use, these are like little 8mm magnets, okay. So I'll just pull 2 out for a minute. Whoops, and then stick to everything, these. Okay, and I'm going to put 1 magnet on the inside to go over on the other side, or I can go the other way around. Whichever way you want to do it is absolutely fine. Now, some people find magnets a little tricky. I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue. Now, I will be honest that these magnets will need to come fairly close to the edge of your seat belt, but I'm allowing the 1/8 of an inch, and I've come out just a fraction because my patterned paper needs to make sure that that covers that. Okay, and while that is just sticking on there, I've got, where's my little patterned paper? I had it already cut. I've got some little bones, so I've already cut those. So my little bone bit will come just over the top of that, so you can't see that magnet, but it needs to be fairly close to the edge. So I'm going to stick that on there now. Oops. So it's the only trouble doing a little mini album, that everything's so tiny and fiddly. But it's so damn cute. Right, okay. All right, so I'm just sticking that down. Now, if you've not got your papers cut ready for your to decorate with, and you can't put that straight on there, then what I tend to use is a little bit of like purple tape that I just put over the edge of the magnet just to hold it in place. Okay, now I'm just going to do the other side. I'm just going to clip that on there so that sticks nicely on there. Let's just put a little dab of glue. And when I fold that over, now when you're folding this over, you need to make sure that, okay, that just gives me a little dab of glue. That side, I can now take that off and stick that on there, like so. So as I said, if you didn't have your papers already cut, then I would put a little bit of tape on there just to hold that in situ. Now I think my magnet has moved just slightly, so I'm just going to push that over just a little bit, because they're little rascals, these. There we are. Right, that will hold that in place better. Okay, that's on there, and because that's on the inside, I'm just going to put a little bit of tape on that for the moment, just to hold that in place until I sort of decorate the inside. Okay, but hopefully that should now come across. There we are, and you get that nice snap finish. Okay, there we go. So that's just going to hold that in place. I'm just going to put these little decorative bits, I'm just going to clip these back on, because we'll come back and do that in a minute. Okay, so that's the magnetic fastener just on there for the moment. Just let that dry. Okay, and then we're going to come back to our little pocket. Well, that is, oh, see, look, see what I mean, that's come off. Let's take that back off and stick that back on again. In fact, I'll leave that open. There we go. I'm just going to clip these down because these are going to get in my way. There we are, that weight that down. Right, okay. So our little pockets. Okay, if you've seen me do pockets before, okay, what I do is I put the bottom bit on first. I glue that on first, and then I do the sides on the strip. Okay, right, questions. Right, I think we're okay with those. Let's just check in the comments. That's good. Right, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this bit off for a little pocket. I'm just going to run a little bit of glue along the bottom, and I'm just going to position this at the bottom of our little album front, like so. Okay, and then I can open that up. I can see that. Now, a little tip that somebody told me was it's so you get a nice smooth in and out with your little photo mats or photos, is to put a little strip of tape across the bottom, so that when you put them in, they don't catch on that card edge. So I'm just going to tear a bit of that, and I'm just going to stick that in there, so that gives it a nice smoother finish on that. And then we're going to put the pockets up on the side. So now I'm going to peel these off. A little red line of tape, like so. Oh, right, okay. And I'm going to put just a little dollop of glue on here. Sticking to my fingers. I told you this kind of tape is not very forgiving. Right, okay, and then we're just going to tuck those down. We're just going to burnish them down like so. So that is the pocket already done. Okay, and then the little flap. Now when we put the flap on, we need to make sure that we line our album cover. Just needs to come down just a fraction, but we do need to make sure that the side edges do line up with the pocket when we glue that down, and that it is straight across. So there's nothing worse than seeing a wonky flap on there. Who'd have thought I'd be talking about wonky flaps, girls, eh? Right, okay, red line of tape. We'll just take that off. I'm going to add a little bit onto the red tape. Okay, so I've got a little bit of wiggle room. So as I said, I'm going to line that up, make sure that that is nice and straight. Tuck that in. They sort of line up. That's nice and straight on there. This is when you find out whether you're cutting and you're scoring and everything is all good. Right, okay. And that is the little flap done. Okay. And that, apart from our closure, which we'll put on in the end, it is almost our album done. Oh, excuse me. Do you decorate behind the pocket after? Yes, I do, Susie. Good question. And that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to decorate up the little pocket and the little flap. So let's just, right, that's for the inside of the flap. That was a spare bit. Right, so these are my little patterned pieces. So that's my little woof that's going to go on there. This is going to go on the outside, like so. Okay, and then I've got a woof going on the inside. She says, trying to slide that in, like so. Now I do trim the back paper to be the same size as the pocket front, because when you open it, it just looks aesthetically better, I think. But that's just a personal thing. Okay, and then I've got this to go on the inside as well. But before we do any of that, we need to put a magnet so that that will close down. So here we go. I'll get another 2 magnets. See, they're little rascals. They just stick to everything. Right, okay, 2 magnets. Right. So what I do is I'll put the magnet on the flap bit first. Okay, and we're just going to put a dollop of glue on there, and I'm just going to stick that on there like so. Just trying to get it as central as I can. This is going to be the card that is going to go over the top, so I'm going to just stick that on. But again, if you haven't cut your papers out yet to decorate with, then just use a little bit of tape to hold it in place. Okay, so I'm just going to stick that on like so. There we are. I'll just hold that and just press that around there. Right, and then I'm just going to put that other magnet on top. Put a little dollop of glue so that when I fold that over, gives me a little impression of where it's going to stick. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glue onto there. Oh, a little bit of glue, Deb. I think that was a lot of glue. Right, okay. And then I'm going to put my woof, a little woof bit. Now you'll notice that I have gone round all my papers. I've distress inked all round the edges using the black soot distress ink, and I have faux stitched all the way round. These are obviously optional to you, good people. You don't have to do that, but here we are. I'll just line that up, make sure that's nice and straight. So the flap comes down, that holds that in place. Lift that one up. And now I'm just going to stick the page in. Now the reason why I put the card in, I put the paper in at the back, is that where you folded your pocket and those flaps have gone round on the inside, if I was to have stuck that down, you would have possibly seen those flaps on the outside, well, or sitting on here, but it then tucks in. I'm not making sense. I know I'm not making sense. Let me show you. You know when you're waffling and you're thinking, I bet they don't understand what I'm talking about. Right, so there's a pocket. With these flaps here, if I was to have put the paper on first and then stuck the pocket down, you would see the pocket flap. Yeah? But by sticking these down first and then sliding this in afterwards, it covers up that flap, so it gives it a neater finish. Yep. Hopefully that. Now this paper range that I'm using is Crafter's Companion. It's called It's a Dog's Life. They also do a cat version as well. It's a little 6-inch pad. I'm not sure whether we've still got any of these in the shop, but they are really cute, and you get lots of papers, and the paper quality is quite good. So now I've stuck that in, I've tried to line that up there, and I can see that that is slightly out of sync, but I won't worry about it for now. I'll heat gun that and remove that and stick it back down. But here we go. So we've got the back bit, we've got our pocket that comes over, and now we're just going to pop this on the front as well. Yeah, that bottom bit is actually going to put that out of sync a little bit, but we have a way around it. Okay, and we've got our little doggies on there, so I'm just going to center that. Okay, now with the papers for covering the flaps, I've got it so it comes right to that top edge. Okay, I just think that just gives that a nicer finish, like so. And that is our little pocket done. Okay, and then we've got the little photo mat. Now, depending on whether you're actually making this album for somebody and you're putting photos in it, then you could fit in there a couple of 2-inch photos. But if not, and you're just putting a little photo mat in, I've only just made one of these for tonight, but you can at a push put in 2. Now these papers I've cut at 2-inch square, and I've just put place photo here stamp on these, or you can write that on there, or if you haven't got the stamp, you can print it out on paper. So you've got lots of other options. I'm just using a little bit of tape pen here just to glue these down. So there's my little photo mat, and I'm just going to tuck that in there out the way, and that's that side done. Okay, moving over to our accordion page, if everybody's still okay with me. Yeah. I'm just going to finish doing the little seatbelt bits. Okay, so this was paper. Now when I cut this up, it was all one strip. It was a little pattern paper, and so I just followed it all the way through. So I think that's the end of the bone that goes on that side. So I'm just going to stick these on, and all these measurements for all the might need big tweezers for this, are all on the instructions. So I'm just going to stick that on there like so. It's a little bit fiddly, that's why I got my tweezers out, because I'm all fingers and thumbs, not the most delicate. You wouldn't believe it, I make wedding cakes and birthday cakes, which my big fingers. Okay, and then I'm going to put the other one on the other side. Right, I can now take that out. I'm just going to line that up on there. So we've got the little bones. So let's fold that, that's it, and then I'll just do the other little tiny little bit on the outside. Okay, fiddly little things, but I think it looks really nice when it's all done. I'm just making sure that I'm lining it up with the cardstock, the card bit on the top. Right, that's it. I put a little bit too much glue on there. Right, there we are, that will set. That will go off and set, all right. Okay, and now I need to do the bits on the inside. So the inside, I've just gone for the checkered. So I'm going to do this bit that's got the magnet on it, which has just come off. That's a good bit of glue, dear. Look, so you put too much glue on one bit and then not enough glue on the other bit. So let's just stick that down again. Let's just make sure I've got this magnet going the right way. Right, okay, that's fine. Told you these were tricky, these little magnets. Right, bit of glue, and we're gonna just stick that so it just covers that magnet on the end there. Away some of that glue, and then I'm just going to put a tiny little bit of glue on here. Right, I'm going to stick that down on the inside, which is exactly what I've done on the outside. So let's move that. There we go. Right, let's hold that in, and then I'm going to do exactly the same on the other one. There we are. Right, I'm going to stick that in on there. There we go. And that's it, a tiny little bit on there as well. There we are. Hold that down in situ. Right, okay. So that's our little seat belt done. So that will come round and it will clip either way because the magnet will go right through that paper. So that holds that in place. We've done our little pocket. So the paper that I was going to use for the top, okay, is going to be this little checker bit here. So let's just open that up. I'm just going to stick that on. Like so. I'll just centre that. And again, I've gone round and inked all of these and faux stitched on all these pieces. I just think it finishes it off. And then I've got a little thing here that says Fur Baby. So in the little paper pad that I had, it had some little strips with little wordings and stuff on. So I'm just going to glue this down, and then I'm just going to trim it round in black, and then I'm just going to pop that on there. So give myself like so, stick that down, and then where's my lovely ruler? There we are. And then I'm just going to trim round so I get the same sort of thickness going all the way around. So we're going for about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. And then I could stick that at an angle, or I could stick it at the top. I quite like maybe sticking it at an angle, or I could stick it at the bottom. Let's see if I've got my little bones coming across there. Maybe I'll have it going across at an angle, so it just gives it a little bit of interest, because all the bones and everything are all at different angles. So let's go with that. And we're just gonna stick that on like so. So when they open it up, it just says Fur Baby. Okay. Do you know what, Susie? There's nothing wrong with that. Susie just put she's using Velcro dots. Absolutely. You know what? You use whatever you've got in your stash and whatever makes it easier for you. I mean, I have in some of my other albums used little Velcro dots, but yeah, your choice totally. Okay, so the next bit that would be, I'm just looking at the time, we've got about 20 minutes left, is you would place your photos here on your little squares, okay, and you just work your way all the way through. So if we've got time to do that at the end, I will show you, okay, but I think it's important that I show you how I did the closure bit. Okay, so this is my little closure strip. Now again, this is, let me check on my pattern. Closure is 2 inches and 5/8 by 1 1/4 inch, and we are scoring on the 2 5/8 side. So let's just pop that up now. It's 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch and 1 5/8 inch, so that's 1 inch, 1/2, 1 5/8. Okay, because that's going to fold round our fold round our album. So that's going to sit itself on there. That's going to come over, and that's going to hold it in place, and that's where I'm using the final magnet, is to do that. So I need to stick this on first before I sort of decorate the outside. If you do want to use a magnet closure or anything like this, then you can use a strip of ribbon. Okay, you can put ribbon on either side and just tie it off with ribbon. All right, now again for this one, I'm going to corner around the edges. So it's just, again, I'm doing it on the small bits like so. Okay, and I'm going to glue that on there, but I'm going to use a little bit of red liner tape because again it's part of the construction. Okay, so I'm just going to tab a little bit on there, and we'll just trim that off like so. I'm just going to peel that away. A little bit of glue, just so it gives me a little bit of manoeuvrability, and then I'm just going to line this up to make it sort of central. I'm just using my little grid actually as a rough guide. That's it, lift that up. There we go. Right, okay. So I've just stuck down the little 1/2 inch bit, and then you've got that long closure bit that comes around the top, and then the corner edged bit will come up and over like so. And that will hold that all in place. In fact, that's a little bit high up. Let's take that down just a fraction. This is why we put the glue on it, so it gives me a little bit of manoeuvrability. There we go. That's better. Okay, so I'm going to put a magnet on here, and I've already pre-cut the bits to line the inside. So I'm just going to put a dollop of glue on there, stick that on there, and I'm using, here we are, I've got my little bits cut here, so let's just glue those on. So this is for this bit. I think it just finishes it off when you sort of decorate the inside of all the flaps and stuff as well. I just think it makes it look rather lovely. It gives you a chance to show off the papers as well, which is what I like. And then we're a little bit over there, that will go over the magnet and hold that in place. Okay, there we are, and then I'll put that other magnet on, a little dollop of glue just so I can work out where I need to stick it on the other side. Oops, move my keychain out of the way. That's going to fold over, that's going to come across, that's on that bend there. Right, that's where it needs to go. So, and I'm going to stick the front cover on now just to cover that magnet up like so, so we don't have it moving around. But you can see what I mean by using up scraps of papers. You know, invariably, I don't know if any of you do any scrapbooking, but you use like the big 12 by 12 papers. Sometimes you get that like little strip along the bottom where the name is, which has got a little bit of a pattern paper on it. I mean, I've used that as well to decorate. In fact, I used that strip to decorate on the inside of my little travel album. So I'm just sticking that on there, so that will wrap around and hold in place like so. Right, now that that's firm, I'm just going to stick the bits on here. Just going to pop that on. There we go. Just going to tuck that in like so. There we are. So I've just used the green to match in with the green there actually. I've just sort of picked up the colours, and the green is also in the little bones, so it just looks, it sort of makes it all cohesive. Is that the word for Thursday night? Cohesive? I think so. Here we go. Right, I'm just gonna get rid of that glue. Right, okay, so that's stuck. So we've decorated that bit, that's come around. I'm just going to put the bit on the back. So I've gone with this lovely pour paper here. Now obviously this paper is going to cover up this little hinge bit here. so it just tidies that up a little bit, like so. Now just be careful with things like directional papers as well, when you're sticking your papers down. Trust me, the amount of times I have stuck things on upside down. But if you've got directional paper, then I tend to go with the pattern that goes one way the most, if you see what I mean. Although this has got it going slightly other ways, but you can see the paws are going up one way, if that makes sense. There we are. Right, okay. Right, so we're going to decorate the front. Now, because we have the magnetic closure coming over, I was just conscious of the fact that I didn't want that necessarily to go right over the design. So what I've got here is, it says love me, love my dog. So again, these were just some of the little strips that were in the little paper pad that I had. So I'm just going to put the love me up in that corner, like so. And then we've got the love my dog bit, and that I'm just going to bring down into that bottom corner. And then I've got a little hutch, I've got a little collar, and I've got a little paw print. So I think I'm going to put these on, but I'm going to put these on little wonky bits. So I'm going to have the little hutch coming that way, and the little collar. I'm just going to tuck that just slightly under there, but enough so that you can see that it's the collar, and it comes over like so. And then I've got a tiny little paw print just to finish it off in the middle, and that decorated. Okay, look at all these, look, you can see all these little clips everywhere where I've had everything prepped. Let's move those out of the way. Right, and finally we'll just put the little place of photo mats here. So I'm just going to open this up and stretch that out on one side. And I use, for this, I just use some double-sided tape. But again, if you're giving this as giving this to somebody and you've got the photos, then just attach the photos directly. But if you're giving it as a gift for people to put their own photos in, then you can. Right, I'm just coming out of shot a bit there. Right, let's bring that over. Okay. Right, so we'll just stick that in on there, and then I'm going to follow that all the way along. Oh, bless you, Susie. Thank you. It is. I love it. It's such a dink. Oh, that's why I've called it Dinkywinkydoodah. It's a dinky winky little album. And apologies again for that slight mishap with the measurements for the pages. I will get that tweaked on the one that's on the website. But like I said, if any of you, I've just put that in just a little bit wonky there, if any of you haven't already downloaded your cutting and scoring instructions, then please do that before Sunday, because then because at the moment they're free. All right, and here we are. We're just putting this last little bits on here. I'm only putting a very small bit of tape on here because obviously if you're giving this album to somebody, they might want to take these off and then ready to stick their photos on. So I'm not going mad with the paper on here. But yeah, but what a lovely little gift for somebody, especially when they've got the little doggy. Or you could decorate it like a new baby. You can have new baby photos in here. I mean, it's endless really. As I said earlier, you could use it for you know, if you've got children heading off to university and they want to take photos with them, you know, they might not want to take a big album but this is something that is, you know, they can sort of take with them and that. Right, so that's just one side done, and then I'm just going to flip this over and do the other side, making sure of course that I am sticking these the right way up and not upside down. Right, so we'll just do this last little one. I'll just put that on, so when you open it up, yeah, they are still working the same way. That's good. I'll just stick these on. Now I have got, I won't be doing another Craftywafty along for a couple of weeks, only because we've got a big family do going on, and I'm going to be sorting out a few bits and pieces with that. But I have got a summer project, well, I've got 2 summer projects coming up, which will be done over a couple of weeks for both projects. Okay. I will do a sneaky peek this weekend just to give you a flavour of what's coming up. Okay, I've got one lovely little album. It's a 5x7 album. In fact, I might give you a little sneaky peek right at the very end when I've just finished doing this. Right, that's it. How many more have I got to go? 1, 2, 3. I'll cut out enough of these. Jolly good. Thank you, Sam. Well, I do try and keep things ticking over. I'm also working on some other projects as well. You know, because it's not just the albums that I do a variety of different bits and pieces. So I've got a couple of other things that are coming up. I can't wait to show you what I've planned for my big Christmas project this year. You're going to love it. Love it, love it, love it. Yeah, so it's all good fun and games. Okay, we'll just stick that bit on there. Right, and I think we are there. So let's just fold that all up. So what I like about this is that I've tried to pick up some of the colours and things, so you've got a contrast coming across here, but you'll check paper that of our little seat belt. Got a lovely little photo there, so we'll just pop that over. That's it. And then we've got our little photo mat. I mean, how cute is this? I mean, that is just adorable. Pop that across, and then we've got a little bit of decoration and that on the outside, and there we have it. Have I frozen? Oh, have I come back, Sam? Oh, back now, thank you. I was going to say, I know I've got my fan on, but it's not that cold. I would expect it to have frozen on that, but thank you for the heads up on that. Anyway, so there we are, one cute little Dinkywinkydoodah album, and this is a travel one that I made the other day. And this was my first prototype that I did, so I have tweaked a couple of bits on here, but I mean, they just look fab. They look so cool, and I can't wait to give these out for gifts and that to my friends and that. So I'm just going to pop them over there. Right, sneaky peek. Are you ready for this? Oh, okay, so I've been dropping on and off, but it might be your connection. It could be my connection. I mean, I'm sat here in the garage. I acca my craft room, you know, so it could be either of us. Right, this is my next project, okay, that is coming up in a couple of weeks. It is what I call my mindfulness album. Now, you get a choice with this album. You can either make it with one hinge, which will give you 4 pages or 4 sides of pages, or you can make it with 2 hinges, which will give you 8 pages, okay, or 8 sides. All right. But I wanted to make this because I thought it's quite a nice little project. It's a 5x7 album. It can take up to at least 50 to 60 photos depending on the size that you use, but that's the front, and I've tied it with ribbon. And just a little sneak peek, we've got little pages, there's little accordions, there's little flaps and things going on. There's even, is that acetate? Oh, right, and that's it. Okay, and I'm not showing you any more until I do my proper walkthrough. All right. And again, with any of our moving forward, like for craftywafty.co.uk, I will put up the cutting and scoring instructions for the mindfulness album. Okay, and again, right up until when the event starts and that, they will be free of charge. Okay, but yeah, I'm just in the middle of typing those up, and then we are good to go. So all I need to say is thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed tonight. Sorry about that tiny little hiccup on the instructions, but I think we sorted it all out. And yeah, I would love for you guys to put photos on our Facebook page, in our group. If you haven't joined our Facebook group, then do join that, and then you can put photos up of your little mini albums that you have done. Okay, but thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in a couple of weeks. Take care.